All right, welcome back to the dungeon where we geek out on all things horror, thriller, mystery, and suspense. And we have another return guest to the dungeon. We have none other than Bret Nelson. Bret, how you doing?
Howdy. I'm ready to geek.
Ready to geek out. So evidently we didn't harm you too permanently last time you were here about a year ago talking about Manborg.
Or I just blanked it completely because it was so terrible.
Yeah, it was just so traumatic. So, but thanks for coming back on, and we're going to talk about some other stuff, things that just now we're recording this. In the middle of May?
Yes.
Yes. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about here has probably been out on the streets already, and one of those things is your children's book.
Yes.
Children's book that came out at the time of this recording. I think it was released about a week ago.
Last week, and I just got the proofs for the hardcover version today. So that one was lagging behind. Once the publisher, Encyclopocalypse, it's their first children's book, very first one.
Okay.
Took a chance on, and the publisher, Encyclopocalypse, it's run by a fine gentleman named Mark Miller, who I will always praise because he keeps buying my books.
That's a good friend to have.
He really wanted it in hardcover, so because he said kid books in rhyme with the crackly spine and everything that you can lay out flat on the floor. So those just came in today. So that'll be 3 versions apart right now. There's the ebook version, softcover version, and I'm hoping by end of June, they're talking to different people here and there. It'll be narrated as well.
Okay, all right. So that's good. And so you wrote the book with the rhymes and everything, which to me is pretty epic. I couldn't do something like that. And the pictures were done by Pete Mitchell.
Yeah.
And I gotta say it's a really cool kids book. I mean, it's very entertaining. It's very I don't know if it'll be. I mean, it's been about years since I've been a child, but I'm sure it would be really humorous to a child and cute. But in inserted in that, they were kind of like running under the undercurrent of it is a really good life lesson.
I hope. It's also a little bit creepy, which we were going for when I first pitched it to Mark. He said, "Children's book. You know what kind of a publisher we are, right? We just did the novelization of Chopping Mall. We did Dying Sheep. We've got Amityville Death Toilet. What kind of a that just came out last month? Amityville Death Toilet." And so I said, no, you don't understand. It's body horror for kids. And he said, okay, I'm in. If nothing else, I've at least got to see it. So it's got a little creepiness to it. If you have a child who is going to get creeped out, I mean, there's no harm done to the character, although the head ends up in a pan.
Right,
but
right.
There's
not no blood or gore, you know.
There's no blood. There's no gore.
The screen's not overflowing with red and that type of
thing.
No,
there's no painful things or anything. It's just all part of the life lesson of losing yourself.
Right.
Is you just may end up losing your head, and as long as that head is still talking and blinking, and then everything turns out okay at the end, you're fine. There are other, a little more sensitive parents, or maybe just good parents that would say maybe we'll wait until Junior's a little bit older.
So what would you say is a good starting age? I mean, even prior for the child to know how to read, what would be a good age that the kid would be that the adult could read this story to their child?
I would hope around 5 or 6. At any time they understand Halloween, monsters, when that kind of stuff's coming up, anytime they're into robots and monsters and Halloween and spaceships, we should be right. You're right in there. Because we got kind of a crazy, silly doctor, and we've got a lab, and it can fit into that sort of spooky pretend time, and you learn a lesson along the way. I think that's about the right age. And that's going to be a different age for everybody. I mean, my kid went trick or treating as a bat before he could walk.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was two and a half, and he was fine with it. He just kept saying bat. Bat, scary bat, scary bat, bat, scary bat. He knew to like that. Okay. So he's still doing 20. It's a little worrisome.
Definitely made an impression on him, I guess.
Yes. So Halloween it's always a big deal at this house. Halloween is always a big deal at this house.
Wow. So that is out now. And again, you can get it through Encyclopocalypse. You can get it to. I'm assuming you can get it through like Amazon or your bookseller
all of them.
Stuff.
All of them.
Place.
Anywhere you get books. It's Moby, Thrift Books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. We're hoping for some retail here and there, but it's harder and harder with independent publishers to get the shelf space. But there's independent bookstores, so
yeah,
we're hoping. Now that we've got a copy in hand that we can walk around with, we can hopefully get it on a couple of shelves as well.
Excellent. But yeah, it's a really nice, short, really cute book. The reading and stuff like that, since it's all kind of, it's almost like sing song.
I was aiming for Shel Silverstein in the meter. That's kind of where I was trying to park it, because as opposed to Seuss was about a minimum of words, he would be challenged by his publisher and say, I bet you can't do a book with only this many words in it, because he wanted to have the repetition. If there's only 65 words in the book, like Green Eggs and Ham has very few words in it. I think it has like 50 words in it. But by the time you get to the end, because of all the repetition, that kid's learned all those words, because Shel Silverstein's tales, Sarah Sibley, Cynthia Stout would not take the garbage out. All of them were very long. And he also had, and I think it was for the parents, big words. And that's something that is a little older for this book. I'm using words like passively aggressive and paparazzi, and some of the words are thicker.
But it's a cool book. So definitely look for that. If you have children, I think you definitely need to get into getting that book, especially if you like Bret's kid, like to dress up like a bat at 2 years old. I think they'll eat this up.
Good. I hope so. Yeah, the illustrations are really cute too. Pete Mitchell and I met at Disney. We used to make video games for Disney together, and that was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we keep finding excuses to find projects to work on together, and many of them for children, actually, just for other people. We did Toy Story projects together at the Jim Henson Company. We did Muppet projects at Henson's. We did Toy Story projects at Disney. And then we hadn't worked together on anything for a while, and this came along, and back together we went. Kids again. Mm-hmm. So someday we'll figure out something we can work on together for grown-ups.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to your novelization of what has been spouted as the worst movie in history.
Undeserved.
If horror movies were like, I talked about it like this. If horror movies was like the Atari 2600, mm-hmm. Plan 9 from Outer Space is like the E.T. video game.
Though there were some world building and time slip things in E.T. that they did a much better job on labor in Prince of Persia. It's just the system wasn't ready for them yet. They tried to cram too much stuff into that game, and so it failed. I often have had this argument, though, because I've been a fan of we're talking about Plan 9 from Outer Space, folks. Originally known as Grave Robbers from Outer Space, screenplay and film by Edward D. Wood Jr., rest his soul.
Yes.
Book's coming out on what would have been his 100th birthday.
Yes.
Had he not died at 53 back in the 70s. I have had this argument because I'm a firm defender of Plan 9 because I just love it. And when people say, well, what is the worst movie then if it's not Plan 9? My answer is always the same, Cocktail. That horrible 80s movie, 90s movie, Tom Cruise.
Okay.
I defy you to sit through more than 6 minutes of that before you're just like, nobody involved in this was even trying. Nobody cared. It's just cashing in.
Is everybody phoning it in?
Just phoning it in, stem to stern, total cash grab. Gonna all not try hard and make money. For what is this movie about? It's about a lack of effort making movies.
Okay. All right.
And it's just a big kidney stone of a film. Sit there in pain. Just
let's see.
Now, have you seen the movie? Let's start there. Have you seen the picture?
Which one? Cocktail?
No, Plan 9.
Oh.
I hope you haven't seen Cocktail. I won't mention on anybody.
Okay. I've not seen Cocktail, no. But I did in preparation for this interview. I did watch the movie. That's currently on Tubi, so I did pull that up and watch it. I don't think I've ever seen it from beginning to end. And then after watching it, I went through your novelization of it. Yeah, I think. I guess they did what they can with what they had. What got me is just the I don't know, the very dramatic acting of it.
Yes.
I mean, I just started busting out laughing during the fight scene in the spaceship because it's like, I don't know how many cameras they had at the time. Probably just one or two at most.
Just one.
Just one, and they just So you saw the fist like miss by a mile. Right?
Yep.
And
the stunt doubles do not look anything like the people that are fighting, and plus you've got there's so many wonders. The technology on the ship is old radio parts sitting on a wooden workbench.
Right.
And it's very clearly 2x4s and plywood held together with nails, with a bunch of radio tube stuff sitting on top of it. And then they panned close to it to give us a better look. If you see the alien base with the ruler, played by John Breckenridge, he's got this little like alien writing desk, this wooden desk, very very similar to one that I've got in my room over there.
Okay.
It's a desk just like that, but they needed to tech it up a bit. So if you look at what's on his desk, in the foreground of it, that I'll have everybody just trust me on this, or go look for this scene in the movie. In the foreground on his desk, he has the flashing warning light from one of the striped barriers that they put in front of a construction site. You know, the little power box, and it's got the yellow light that flashes? Yeah. It's that, but that didn't look techy enough. So on top of that is a float from a deep sea fishing kit, electric taped to the flashing light box. So there's a fishing lure attached to a piece that they just swiped from a construction site.
Okay.
High-tech stuff on the desk. You can't beat it. You can't beat it.
And then it was so nice that they're the chamber and the spacecraft that belonged to the ruler had very nice curtains.
Oh yeah,
set up. And what kind of airplane was that guy flying? Because that was the little steering wheel that they had.
According to the guy who played the pilot, Gregory Walcott, who later was in Norma Ray. He was in a whole bunch of really legit films as his career went along. He was talked into doing this picture by one of the backers, who said, "This guy's got this footage of all the ghosts. He seems really sharp. I want you to play the lead in this." He did it as a favor for his friend. Yeah, the cockpit scenes were the last scenes that they shot in the film, hoping they could rent in a cockpit set. Didn't work out. You're going to lose the stage. So they brought in the folding chairs, and Walcott said he came early so he could kind of get used to what the chair felt like. He didn't want to be clumsy in the cockpit because he was a pilot. Mm-hmm. He's got to feel like he belongs there. And he asked the guy, "Where is the cockpit set?" And they bent 2 pieces of masonite board together, and they put a couple of 1x8s across the top and towed them together. And then they hung a shower curtain behind it, and they brought in 2 folding chairs. They hung a architect's proportion wheel on one side and a clipboard on the other, and they said, "You're in it. That's the cockpit." And Wood kept saying, "Don't worry about it. We'll be cutting away to the saucer. All anybody's going to care about is the saucer. It's going to look fine." That was always his thing. Is by the time you get it through the editing, and you're seeing it in the harsh light. You're not seeing it the way the camera sees it. The camera sees it completely differently. It wasn't that different, but the reason I'm in love with the movie so much is because Wood had this crazy plot that was he's got a government conspiracy to cover up the aliens. X-Files later. The aliens are trying to warn us off our arms development before we destroy ourselves and the universe. Day the Earth Stood Still. You've got the Army fighting the alien menace, trying to save everyone. You got ID4. You've got the love story with the newlyweds in the background, Gone with the Wind. You've got the dead rising from the earth and attacking and capturing the living, Night of the Living Dead or Last Man on Earth, whichever. It's this whole mishmash of stuff. But the connections are the aliens want to warn us off our arms development. The government can't understand the aliens' message. There's something wrong with the translation software, so all they're doing is trying to keep the public from knowing that there are aliens and firing back at them to make them go away. In the meantime, the aliens think that they're being ignored by the government, so they have these different plans that they use to alert the public that something's going on. And in this case, Plan 9 is they're going to resurrect the dead and march them on the nation's capitals. That is something that people can't ignore and the government can't explain away. They did in the original Day the Earth Stood Still with Michael Rennie, the alien signal to everybody was shutting off all the power on the planet. With the exception of hospitals, airplanes in flight, those kinds of things were allowed to continue. But everywhere else, there was no power. And that was the aliens, throwing down, "You have to listen." Mm-hmm. Wood's thing was, we're going to raise the dead and have them march onto the nation's capitals, and they're going to say, "You have to listen." And in the end, they gain access to the alien ship. The Army gets in there. They have the final dialogue. It goes terribly. There's a fight on the alien ship, and before the message can be delivered, the alien ship crashes, and will we listen? Who knows? It's a big plot line. Mm-hmm. It's a multi-million-dollar big budget plot line. And he had $50,000.
Wow.
So with $50,000, with 5 days, with a little stage, the size of a convenience store, and one camera and his usual group of people, Tor Johnson, he has sort of his own little Mercury Theater that he gathers round, and a couple of, he always found a star that was hard on their luck, so he had somebody to put on the poster. But with that group, he did it anyway. He did it anyway, and he never cut back. We can't afford to shoot the fight scenes. Fine, I'll use stock footage. We can't have the army of alien saucers. Okay, we'll use 3. We can't have the army of zombies. Okay, we'll use 3. Lugosi passed away. Okay, we'll get a body double. It was never, I guess we'll have to rewrite it. Somebody flubbed a line. The sound went bad. These scenes are in the daylight. These scenes are at nighttime. It's all right. Go. It will. This patchwork quilt will somehow make sense. But the fact that he got it done, that he didn't stop, that to me, and it's his movie. That is the difference to me. That when they say he was lousy, it's like, well, you know what? He found the money.
Yeah.
And he wrote the script, and he shot the thing, and he got it distributed. That's a lot further than many. And many who just partway through this thing just would have thrown up their hands, and said, forget it. Forget it. It's not worth it. We're out of money, and we're never going to be able to shoot this thing. Or just go home. No, he did it. He got it all put together. And like I said, you look at those story points, and there is a good story in there. There's an X-Files movie in there. There's a big old movie in there. And that's what I tried to get in the novelization. It's not a parody, because you can't parody something that's already funny. That's never going to work. And we were talking early on, is there some way? It's not in there, don't worry. But for a heartbeat there, I was looking at public domain comic book pages of war battles, because there were a lot of World War II comic books that came out in the 50s, and most of them are public domain now. And we were thinking about wherever he had stock footage, we put public domain comic book pages into the book, and that would be our stock footage. Just use the same tanks over and over and over again. Every time he had stock footage in the movie, we'd have it in the book. But it was too much inside baseball, way too much inside baseball. So we said, forget it. We're just gonna. I got the screenplay. This is the screenplay for Plan 9. There was one. It's a little different, but between the screenplay and obsessive viewing of the movie over and over and over again, put together the plot points, and once we had the plot points, I just wrote it straight.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask you, after seeing the movie and then reading your novelization, it's like I could, at least with the dialogue, I could identify. Okay, I recognize this scene. I know this scene here. It's like, okay, but you espoused on so much other things that. Hell, you even went over, and it wasn't in the movie. I don't think it was, unless I missed it. You went over all 10 plans that the aliens had, and only like maybe 3 of them were viable.
Yep.
So,
well, you can't have Plan 9. And
without
when they say
Plan 8, 1 through 8.
Without the others. And when the ruler says, what plan are you going to follow? That is a line in the movie.
Right, yeah.
Says, what plan are you going to follow? And the guy says, Plan 9. And the ruler gets this paper out. He starts thumbing through it. Plan 9, Plan 9. Plan 9 is the resurrection of the dead, although I'm convinced John Breckenridge was looking at his script. I think that's what he actually brought up. But that just means that there has to be a laundry list.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be plans to choose from, and they've chosen the 9th one. And what a ripoff it would be in the novelization if you didn't say what the other ones were and why they didn't go with them.
Yep.
Why didn't they go with the other 8 plans? And it didn't make sense to me to stop the list at 9. So there's 10. There's one more after.
Yep.
There's one more after.
So
some people think it was that they had tried 8 times to invade the Earth and failed, and this was the 9th attempt. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah. That would imply a lot of, trial and error and a lot of, in a sense.
Yeah. And budget. I don't know if the aliens would. I don't know if the alien ruler would sign off on another expedition.
No,
to Earth.
he seemed like pretty tight, you know.
Yeah, he pulls ships from, again, it's in the movie. He kind of dismisses the underlings, so it's just him and the commander in the room. And he says, I'm pulling 2 ships from your command.
He takes one of he just leaves us one.
That only leaves my ships. I need them elsewhere, and your mission on Earth is not looking good. That's in the movie.
Yep.
And it's a good scene. Again, I stretched it out a little bit, but I wanted it to play. If Wood had the time to tell the story that he told, if he was able to tell it with more than bullet points, because he did it in 1 hour and 17 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
He got all those bullet points in, and he didn't cut a one of them, which is why it's a little bit of a jumble, because they are just jumping from one thing to the next, because he's trying to get so much into that 1 hour and 17 minutes. I was trying to ground it also in a very realistic 1950s Southern California. Yeah, every restaurant, every hotel, every movie house, every street, every company mentioned that's not in the movie is a real place, 1956 LA.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. Now, let me ask you this: in the world of right now, we're in a society of all these reboots and whatever, but I mean the movies. What, the movie in 1959, 57?
They made it in 55. It was released in 57. Okay. It took them 2 years to actually find a distributor.
Okay. So here we are, 80 years or so after? I mean, they're making reboots of a movie that was released 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So do you think it's time to come out with a reimagining or a reboot of Planet Nine?
I don't know if I'd go with Plan 9, but I think what's missing is the spirit. It's again, this is later, but the other thing that's happened in the horror community as we're speaking is Roger Corman passed away just a few days ago.
Yes.
So I know people are watching this now, but that's fresh. Just happened, and what a run.
Yeah, and, at the time of recording, it happened,
Thursday, last week.
Yeah.
4 days ago. And that spirit of, okay, we've got this much money, I got a poster, I got a solid script, I need a dependable director that can bring this thing in on budget, and just following some basic rules to get a picture done. You see some of it in the independent features that they get picked up on say, Shudder. Some of the stuff that Blumhouse is putting out has kind of that edge on it. But the studios, there's so much trepidation in doing anything that hasn't been market tested and focus grouped and had every edge sanded absolutely smooth. So there's nothing coming out that isn't just this absolute egg-shaped, inoffensive, bland, formulaic. And it's people looking for a safety net. I okayed this thing. I greenlit this thing. How can I not get fired if it goes south? Seems to be the decision making, as opposed to, is it a good picture? Is it a good script? Well, I don't know if it's a good script or not, because that is not what matters. What matters is, if it goes south, am I going to get fired? Now, if you're doing a reboot of a successful movie, you've got somewhere to go. If it goes south, you can say, look, it's not my fault, because everybody knew the title. It seemed like a sure thing. It wasn't me. Nobody's willing to hang their neck out,
right,
and take a chance. And that's the part. I mean, Ed, especially in the later films, Tor Johnson, on the last film that he worked with Wood, which was called Night of the Ghouls, Tor would not come out of the dressing room unless he was paid cash, because Wood had shorted him so many times. And he knew. He just said, I know what you say you're going to pay me, but, cash in hand, or I don't step in front of the camera. Because Wood was in the wind. It was all him. And half the time it was money in his pocket, that the investor gave him the money in his pocket, and he distributed bills at a time to the people around to get the movie made. That spirit is not around anymore. I mean, you look at any, God, what was the picture we were talking about? I can't remember which title it was, but somebody said, have you thought about doing a novelization of this movie because it's great? And I said, watch the opening of that movie, because it was a recent one, and count how many production company logos come across the screen on any horror movie before the movie actually starts. You'll see, whatever productions and this production company, and then they've all got a little animated logo in front of the movie, six or seven.
Was it Late Night with the Devil?
It might have been. It might have been that like it, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, the ongoing joke is like there's 20 production logos before you even start the movie.
Yeah. You find the money through groups of small production companies, or sometimes the actor, the writer, will have their own production company that's looking for scripts or stuff, so they're in the mix too. In Ed Wood's day, you found an orthodontist who had a lot of money in his savings account. And if that guy wanted to be involved in the movies and he gave you $5,000, that's 10% of the budget for Plan 9. You found, 10 of those guys, you could go make a picture. And they don't need their name in front of with an animated logo in front of the credits. And Ed's problem was he was always looking for money as the show was on. And he'd take from this guy and take from that guy, and he'd have, this money, and, who do I owe? Oh, yeah, okay. And he'd start peeling it off to the people he already had. By the time he was done, he oversold the picture by, 15, 20 times. So there was never a percentage left for him, which is why he ended up broke. He'd end up owing everybody so much money by the time it was all done, because he sold everybody points. If the movie made any cash at all, even, whatever that first distribution check was, it was just gone. Wow. But again, it's that spirit, and who owns it at the end of the day too. You've got those 20 production companies in there. Who owns the picture? Whose is it? And how many of those people actually have a say in the lines, in the editing, in all of it? It's that independent spirit is what's hard, I think, to understand now. That you could just have a person that ran it, that you had Roger Corman just running it. There's a wonderful book called Cheap, Fast, and in Control. And they interviewed Francis Ford Coppola about his first movies working with Corman. And Coppola said that he did overseas, he was in Europe, and they did 2 racing movies, car racing movies, which were big in the mid-'60s. And what they ended up with at the end of the 2 movies was a pretty good little production van. They had tricked out this VW bus with editing equipment and camera power and a moviola in it. It was a pretty good little remote studio they had by the time they were done. And Coppola was running it. He was AD on these 2 movies. And they were done, and Corman said, okay, sell the van, and we're going to, I'm done here. We're going to go back to the States and shoot these other movies. And everybody involved was begging Corman, no, don't. We've got this castle for another week. When we've got this terrific van, it's just getting good. And Corman's going, I don't have a movie to make. I don't have a movie to make. By the time I do pre-production and set it up and all of that, it's not, I've got 20 other pictures in my head. It's all going to be fine. Coppola, while everybody else was begging him not to stop, Coppola went to his room and he wrote a script. He wrote a script that could use everything that was inside that van and the set they were in and his friends from film school for all the stars. So he came to Corman the next morning with a script in hand and said, if you let me direct this, I can have this done in a week. And I know who to do it, how to do it, whatever. And Corman looked it over, and he did already have the set rented, and he did already have the production van. And he said, okay, as long as it's as violent as Psycho, because that's what your movie's going to be in the barnyard with. You need to promise me a picture as violent as Psycho, and then you could do it. That was Coppola's first movie, and it was Dementia 13, which is now in the public domain. You can find it in any It's all over YouTube and everywhere else. That was Coppola's first film.
Wow.
Now, for the 6 weeks leading into that they made those 2 race movies, he was paid $650. $650. Now, granted, he had room and board and everything else, because he's a member of the production. But he says in this book where he's telling this tale about how he got his first picture, now you'll have a film student or a production assistant that will come in to have that conversation with me and hear me tell this story, and they expect to be paid $650 for the day to come and talk with me. Again, that spirit of let's make movies, it's rare. It's still out there. There are people out there. I think that crew behind Late Night with the Devil had it. I could feel everybody in that movie wanted to make a movie. I could feel the passion and I could feel the fun on that set. Everything Kostansky does, Psycho Gorman, you could just tell everybody's having a blast making that movie. Every now and then you get one where it's like, the Chucky TV series. I mean, if you watch any episode of that, it looks like everybody's having a ball doing it. Like they want to be there.
They're not making a casino.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, don't turn it into a bar with people flipping bottles around to tie it back. So the spirit is there, but it's just rare. It used to be most of the movies on that double bill were, people living out of their cars out in the middle of the desert to shoot The Hills Have Eyes.
Wow.
Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. I'm seeing more of it than less of it now. But as far as the big studios go, I don't know. Dana Gould, who wrote our introduction to Plan 9, he said that he could not understand Hollywood's huge response to the $15 million the $15 million wonder that was Godzilla -1. Have you seen it, by the way?
Oh yeah.
He was trying to understand why Hollywood's response to that gorgeous, heartfelt film was to take King Kong and Godzilla and put them in a $300 million remake of Lethal Weapon 3, which is what Godzilla v. Kong was. Just Warner Brothers just put out.
It's rumored to be like 15 million, and I read something where that amount was asked of the director of Godzilla -1. He said, and his response was basically 15 million. God, I wish it was 15 million.
Yeah, it's right with the marketing.
So evidently it was less than that. I don't know, but really,
you had the director, writer, and visual effects supervisor was all one person. So he knew not only what he could shoot, but he knew what he could do on the post side well. So because they trusted the person. They said if the one person's doing all of this stuff, then you get a vision in there, and it can all work out okay. It can all be good.
Yeah. And
we'll see it again. I'm glad you brought up Late Night with the Devil, because that brings my heart up again. That makes me smile again. Okay, it's not all bad. Every now and then we've got the right people out there fighting the good fight.
Yeah. And every once in a while, people like that win Oscars. And I'm so glad Godzilla -1 won the one thing that they were nominated for, and they got that award. And
they were so happy.
Yeah.
Other people won that night. They looked miserable up there picking up their statues, and these people, all of them, they've got their Godzilla shoes on, and they got their little toys and jumping up and down.
Yes.
Ed Wood, and I'm trying to think of somebody who was doing it a little better. Well, I guess Corman at the time was doing it a little better. I recently saw Bucket of Blood again, which was very, very early Corman. Dick Miller, I think it might have been his first movie. And a lot of it's still good. A lot of it's still good. And he liked the cast enough that he kept them for another week and made the Little Shop of Horrors with the same cast and the same sets. So there you go, because he could do that sort of thing because he was Roger Corman. My first novelization, Manborg, was from a movie from Steve Kostansky. And if you aren't familiar with Steve Kostansky's work, you should be. And he's independent and can make $1 million look like $10 million. And he is a visual effects and practical effects guy in addition to a director. So he knows what it's going to look like and how he can put the picture together. He is, to tie it back to Corman, right now he is shooting the reboot of Deathstalker. Okay. And I don't think it could be in better hands, actually. He's doing it with proper rubber monsters, and he's got a very good, very handsome stunt guy that's going to be Deathstalker, and the early stuff looks terrific. But that picture, Deathstalker, was one of 10 that Corman made in Argentina, because there was this giant film industry and studio in Argentina that wanted to branch out from their local films and go international. And Corman came to see them and looked at this sort of locations they had. They had jungles and they had deserts, and he looked at the studio facilities they had, the level of camera operators and everything they had. And in his head, Corman said, I could make a picture here, but it's very far away. And he did the math, and he cut with them a 10-picture deal. So I'm not going to make a movie here. New World's not going to produce a movie here. New World's going to produce 10 movies here. And he knew in his head that 6 or 7 of them were going to be swords and sorcerer movies because Conan was a giant hit. And he knew he could ride that wave if he was quick. And he knew that these jungles and these ruined castles would work really well if he got the right set of stunt people, brawny, and, you know, the local model population in fur bikinis, you know, whatever Corman was thinking at the time. But the math he did in his head was, if I can get 10 of them done, then it will make money. It will be. I can't budget one movie to be profitable here, but I can budget 10.
Okay.
And that was the deal that he got, and they were quite successful. But that got us Deathstalkers 1 through 4. It got us Barbarian Queen 1 and 2. It got us, I think it got us Forbidden World. It also got us a couple of legit pictures. But again, it's that. I don't know if it's wrong to say cowboy in this day and age, but it's that thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Wood had it too. Somebody who could look at a room of 30 people on a cardboard graveyard set with studio fog and a camera that's not functioning very well, and this guy can look at everybody and say, it's going to be fine. And that's good enough.
Yeah.
Everybody move forward with their day. I guess on the film side, that's what's missing. And hopefully I got a little bit of that in the book. Hopefully I got a little bit of that can-do spirit in the book, because at least the people are hopeful.
Yeah.
The characters are at least hopeful.
Now talking about the book, do you have a passage of your novelization that you'd be able to read?
I do.
Give us, everybody, a taste of what was taken from
this. Let me see how far I can go here. Bela Lugosi's double, who was Ed Wood's wife's chiropractor. Wood thought that he looked like Lugosi because he had ears that stuck out. And so did Lugosi. That was the key that made him say, well, it'll be fine as long as we cover up your face, see those ears, and we get a skull cap on you. It'll, you know, the slick back hair. You'll be fine. Okay. This is, finally, it's no longer rumor. We have Colonel Edwards from the Army and we have Lieutenant Harper from the police, and we have Jeff Trent, the pilot, and his wife are all sitting on the Trent's patio.
Right.
And the Trents are telling their story to the Army, who is willing to listen, about these strange goings-on with the flying saucers and things. So they're finally getting their story told. The Army person is finally making some traction of possibly contacting the aliens, when suddenly the dead old man, reanimated by the aliens, appears on the porch and comes at them. His goal is Scooby-Doo style. He's supposed to frighten them off. He's supposed to terrify them and send them away. So we'll pick it up on his arrival.
All right.
It starts with, we've established that there's this strange sort of vertigo sensation that happens when you're in the presence of the beam that's reanimating the dead. It has an effect on the living, too. It gives them sort of a queasy, odd vertigo feeling. And the person who has had the most dealings with them, which is the pilot's wife, Paula, she recognizes it immediately because she's been through this a lot. And it turns the tables for her.
Okay.
So her husband, Jeff, says, "What is it, darling?" And then he felt it, too, a dizzy sensation. And he heard a faint, whirring sound. "Hey, does anybody else hear that?" asked Harper. Harper's the policeman. A quick look around the patio told him everyone heard it, and it was becoming stronger. He hollered to the patrol car. "You see anything out there, Kelton?" Kelton's his lieutenant, or his subordinate. "It's too dark, Lieutenant, but something started stinking awful bad." "Skunk, maybe?" He took out a Pall Mall and lit it to cover the smell. Jeff Trent held his wife close. "There's something out there," he said. He was sure of it. Everyone felt the same unsteady trepidation. "Stop it! Right there!" shouted Kelton. He drew his weapon and aimed toward the darkness of the graveyard. Everyone got to their feet. Harper pulled his revolver from his shoulder holster. Edwards fished his Browning high power from his attaché case. "Mr. and Mrs. Trent, you better get back." "I said stop!" hollered Kelton. "Hold it right there, or I'll shoot." The old man ignored the young officer's request and continued his relentless advance. The corpse moved into the light cast from the Trent's patio, a tall figure draped in black cloth. "It's the one from the other night!" cried Paula. Jeff held her tighter and turned to put himself between his wife and the ghoul. "I don't have a shot," said Edwards. "Get your man clear." "You're right," said Officer Harper, and he called out, "Kelton, fall back here with us." "Coming!" Kelton split his focus between the advancing ghoul and finding a clear path to the others. He took careful backward steps with his revolver trained on the foul thing. The smell of rot choked him. The still eyes drilled into him. He fired 2 shots into the old man's chest, and it kept coming. The colonel and Harper stepped closer. The dead thing walked on the patio now, just 10 steps from the Trents. Kelton emptied his gun as the ghoul charged him. It struck the officer's head with both fists. Kelton fell to the concrete. Harper and Edwards fired shot after shot. They saw their bullets tear into it, but the dead thing didn't slow down. There.
There we go.
Of course, in the movie, it's a guy kind of walking awkwardly with his back to camera towards some people who are standing there looking at it.
Yeah,
but
just standing there.
But they did what they could.
Yep. And just like a tangent. When I was watching a movie, that inspector or detective, the guy with the trench coat,
yes,
he was making me real fucking nervous with that gun.
Oh yeah, he scratches his head.
He scratches his head. He points
at things with it past his gun. It's in the pig. I've worked with. They call it muzzle awareness. I was on a set with some military, what do they call it? The consultant, the military consultant,
right.
Worked stunt people, and he said the actors were doing this sort of step through of this building to make sure it was clear, and they did the first step through, and the military guys, no, stop. The way he explained it was, anytime you have a gun or a rifle, you need to think as if there is a 30-foot pole sticking out the end of it. Mm. And if you're going to bring it across and that pole's going to bump into somebody, you've got to lift it and bring it over and then bring it down again. So whether it's a handgun or whatever, if they're doing it right, you'll see them come about this far and stop and lift and go over here and then down again and then there. It's muzzle awareness, making sure that you're keeping that front end clear.
Yeah.
And yeah, Harper was the worst. He would take the gun and point at somebody and say, "You, go back to the van. You, get over there."
Well, Bret, thank you so much for coming back into the dungeon. Now,
Sure.
Just so everybody knows right here and now, if people want to find out more about you, other things that now you did you wanted to show something of like a double dual cover type thing.
The other latest book I've had, and they're doing more of these. In fact, by the time this airs, I may have another one out. Listeners of a certain age will remember Ace Double books. And they brought them back as double tap editions, they're calling them at Apocalypse. So it's a novel, and then you flip it over, and it's a novel. So they're printed upside down and back to back, so that if you're reading it on the bus, everybody will think you're insane because you've got the book upside down. But it's if you're looking for a reason to get a print book, it's a fun way. And we did have a modern problem in that the back cover has to have a UPC symbol on a book. Now, Ace didn't have that, and we've got a book here that doesn't have a back cover. So Sean DeReger, the editor, said, "Well, we'll just make the UPC symbol look like a sticker from an old defunct bookstore. Okay. And then we can put it anywhere."
Anywhere like it's like peeling off halfway.
Yeah, yeah. So then it makes sense for the UPC symbol to be on there.
Pretty good.
But Bog Fiends is a Nature's Revenge story, and Murder Garden is a cops and robbers versus a mad scientist story. So they're both still have that drive-in independent thinking, even though they're originals and they aren't based on movies.
Excellent. And where could they follow you to find out more about what?
Well, boy, the publisher couldn't be easier. Buy Horror Books. Yes, that's the website. Buyhorrorbooks.com will take you to Encyclopocalypse. I'm there. You can find me on Amazon. I've got an author page there, or if you find any of these books on Amazon, click follow in the corner, and that'll keep you up to date on everything I got going on, and my bio's there, and all of that stuff. So those are probably the two easiest.
Okay.
Probably the two easiest. But Buy Horror Books. They usually beat Amazon's price by a couple of bucks if you get it direct from the publisher. And I like supporting direct sales to the publishers. That's a good play.
The Parts Mart is already out there, and then the novelization of Planet 9 is coming out. What is it? October
10th.
October 10th.
What would be Ed Wood's 100th birthday?
Okay, so look for that hitting the streets at then, and
and in between there somewhere, the audio versions of the audiobook of this double book will be hitting the market as well.
Okay,
that's going to happen in the next couple of months.
All right, excellent. Well, Bret, thank you so much for coming back to the dungeon. You're always welcome to come in and discuss anything that you have going on, or.
Hopefully, I'll still have stuff going on to discuss.
Excellent. Well, we will be here to talk about those things and geek out about them.
Okay, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.